Well, we are super, super duper excited to talk to you. And
Thank you, Will. Thank you so much. I have a question. Are you, how should I put this? I know are you recording now? And if you are, do you need me to edit myself or do you edit later? Or
I got it. We got all the editing. I am recording and no, I will take care of all of that. No worries at all.
Thank you. Look at your tiny office.
It is. Well, I like yours with the shelves right behind. I mean,
thank you. I'm very nervous because they're face out and they keep falling off the shelves. So something exciting may happen and everybody will jump
well, exciting things happen in these interviews, but usually
I have a very kludgy. My lighting is terrible in here. The light is weird today and where I live and
no worries. No worries at all. Well, Nancy, these are my co-hosts, Kate Colvin and Calissa Mullis.
Hi, how are you?
Great, how are you?
Abby, what was Abby's name?
Oh, my name's actually Calissa, so I need to change that. I logged in with my niece uses my computer for her school from whenever she was working from home. So I've got to change that.
I love your glasses. I have brand new glasses, but I take them off and put them on constantly. So you'll probably see that now I have 3 pairs of glasses.
Nice.
Ooh.
I love the purple.
Like a lot. Yeah.
Very nice.
Very cool.
Barrett Mueller of Western Washington.
Very nice. Oh, you're in Washington State?
Right.
Nice. Right. A friend of mine lives in Eastern Washington.
Oh, really? Where?
The Eastern part of the state.
Wow.
Near.
I only ask, and I only know 2 places because my cousin lives in Eastern Washington.
Gotcha. So I think it's near Hanford, near the Hanford nuclear site.
Sounds great. Sure.
Sounds like a story.
I'm there.
Well, she's a nuclear engineer. So
wow.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I like On Fire be on display behind you.
Yeah.
Yes. I put it up there. I keep moving it. Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Good.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's just dive right in.
Alrighty.
Let me hit start. There we go. All right. So, Nancy, how did you find yourself in the world of Teen Wolf?
Oh, well, it was very exciting because I was at San Diego Comic-Con and my agent wrote me a note and he said, you should go to this booth where this 8 editor is and she wants to know if you want to write a Teen Wolf novel. So I was home from Comic-Con that night and I watched all the Teen Wolf episodes I could find. And then I got up and I went to, I don't know if you've ever been to Comic-Con or know the history of Comic-Con, but all the really good panels get full very early. So you have to stand in line and you have to sit through a lot of stuff you don't care about. So I was
done that
because I'd stayed up all night watching Teen Wolf and loving it. And I had not watched it before. I'd heard of it, but I hadn't watched it. So I sat in the hall and I kept going like this, dozing through buying vinyl toys and all these other programs I did not relate to, but I had to keep that seat. So finally they go, and here they come from Teen Wolf. And the room exploded. People went nuts. And what I noticed, and the thing as a writer, I'm noticing there were as many guys as there were women going in crazy for Teen Wolf, going absolutely out of their minds. And I thought, okay, this is not a girl book. This is not a girl project. This is everybody. And so that was really, really cool. And so then the Toe Tylers came, Jeff Davis came, all these people came in. I think Russell Mulcahy was there. I don't remember. But anyway, they all came up to the main dais, the stage, and they started talking about the show and people were just hanging on every word. And I thought I was even more jazzed up because I'd already watched the episodes. I already thought this is a really cool show. So I went straight to the booth and I said, hi, I'm your new Teen Wolf author. And the editor knew me. Her name is Jennifer Heddle, and she knew me. And so she said, great. And so that's how I entered the world of Teen Wolf.
That's so cool.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Thank you. It was like a little Hollywood dream story, it really was. So it was great.
Fantastic.
I didn't get to go the first year for Teen Wolf, but I think it was third and fourth seasons. I was able to see the panels at Comic-Con. Yeah, I had to wait there all day before I got there. All
No,
sorts
What I'm
of shows.
talking about, you have to be devoted. It's like the one thing. It's like if any of you ever go to Disneyland, it's like if you want to go on Rise of the Resistance, that's what you do. That's all you're going to do that day is try to get onto Rise of the Resistance, which I have not gone on yet. So very excited. But yeah, well, good for you because yeah, it was crazy. And I will say, as a sort of a sad aside, during that whole Hetty experience, I saw Ned Vicini, if you know who he was, and he was actually standing in line to get a Teen Wolf poster signed. And they all looked up. He said, they've already given me the business. Like, why are you standing in line? You're a writer on the show. Why are you doing this? And he said, well, I just didn't know if it was okay. So I thought that was adorable.
Oh, that's
And
adorable.
I ran
story.
into him later at a young adult literature event at the Los Angeles Public Library. And we talked in the garage after the event for probably an hour and a half. And when he decided to go away, it was quite a shock. And I was really stunned. But, you know, I'm glad that Teen Wolf got 2 episodes from him. So yay for Ned.
The show is definitely better for his involvement.
Well, and for yours too.
No. He was a real author. So,
please.
yeah.
That's a Hollywood person talking. when I would, like, just as an aside, when I would go onto the set to do Buffy stuff, people would the first few times they would look at me like, why are you here? I said, I'm here to write a book about the show. And they're like, what kind of book? Like, they read books about our show? And I'm like, yes, lots of books. Really? And are you like from the National Enquirer?
What?
It was really odd to them. They didn't get it, but after a while they did. But at first they were very puzzled.
Right.
Why do people read books about our show? We're a TV show, you know. And I'm like, there's lots of stuff. Don't people buy underwear with your faces on it? So anyway.
No worries.
I was obsessed with Buffy. That was like before Teen Wolf. It was my big fandom. That and
Yeah.
like then there was Angel and Firefly, Dollhouse, like those little. They were very more like small fandoms, but Buffy. That's it'll always hold a very special place in my heart.
Oh yeah.
Thank you. Me too.
Well, speaking of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Teen Wolf, I have to pose the question that is on everyone's mind: vampires or werewolves?
Oh, so do you like your son or your daughter?
Pick a side.
The way I thought about this was, I thought, well, to evade answering which one's my favorite, I'll talk about the difference. And to me, vampires are weird and creepy and spooky and gothic and all that stuff. Werewolves are more straightforward. They're action. They're bombastic, and there's lots of fighting and doing and being, where to me, vampires are more in the shadows. So I would say one is definitely much more gothic-y, kind of long mythology and, the vampire Lestat and all that stuff. And werewolves are more straightforward. One of the things I absolutely loved with a passion on Teen Wolf was the way the werewolves battled each other. And I even told Jeff and the show that they remind me of, I used to live in Japan, they remind me of kabuki. It was like very Japanese-y, stylistic poses. And it just, every time they'd fight, I'm like, yes, another fight. So on Buffy, there usually were 3 fights per episode. And they would say, okay, here's fight number 2. And so they did have, Kung Fu. Buffy had Kung Fu. So she was a more active vampire world. But I think that what I loved about Teen Wolf was just how active it was and how passionate it was. And there was a lot of, if you remember the theme song from Angel and Buffy, la, la, la. It's so sad and you're so moved. And it's like really involved. And it's almost Joss and the writers called the interactions among the characters the soap opera. And in a lot of ways, it's very melodramatic. And so in that way, I think vampires are a little more angsty and twisty and, a lot more relationship driven in some ways than werewolves. I mean, you're going to go out and hunt. And yes, vampires hunt and all that, but a lot of vampire material is not really about the hunt. It's about feeling guilt about the hunt or lusting after someone, or there's something else. And to me, especially on Teen Wolf, the hunt was straightforward. We're hunting. And so for that reason, I think they're very different. So how to pick, I really can't. One thing I will say is obviously I was involved with Buffy for a lot longer than I was with Teen Wolf. And I wish I had been contracted to write more Teen Wolf novels. I'm the one and only, and I don't know why. I know you're going to ask me that. It's on the list, but I don't know. And Buffy just kept cooking. And I still get requests now and then to write something about Buffy or for Buffy or a Buffy thing.
Wow.
And Buffy will never die again.
No, I hope not.
Nope.
3 times is enough for anyone.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. So on the subject of just like you told us how you wrote specifically for Teen Wolf, how'd you get into writing television tie-ins in general?
Okay, well, that's an interesting story in itself because the very first tie-in I ever wrote was for the series of Highlander. And Russell Mulcahy was one of the driving forces of the films. So that was really when Jeff figured that, when I told Jeff that, he's like, oh my gosh, well, I'll have to tell Russell because I'm a huge Highlander fan. And so that was kind of a mistake. I was asked by an editor, would you be interested in writing a Highlander novel? And I had never written any tie-in material at all, ever. And I said, well, I guess. And she said, okay, I have to drive to LA and you have to take a meeting. I'm like, oh my God, I'm all excited. And so I get in my beat up old Volkswagen and I drive to Los Angeles and I go to a bungalow and I meet my liaison, who is the driving force behind the idea that Highlander should have a publishing program. Her name is Gillian Horvath. She's still a good friend of mine. And so she had said to Bill Panzer and his partner, we should have this thing called tie-in novels. And so they were looking for writers. And so what I did before, I forgot what I did, but what I did before that was I faxed. We had faxes then. We had faces and we had faxes. And I faxed 13 ideas. Here, these are my ideas for a Highlander novel. And then I think I even had to write a treatment or an outline. And then I got sent to LA. And I met with Bill Panzer and Gillian, and they had made a reservation at a nice restaurant, but it turned out it was the graduation day in Los Angeles for most of the high schools, and we had to wait 45 minutes till we sat down. So they kept yakking about, well, did you get the rushes from Gastown, and did you this and that? I'm all excited because it's all Hollywoody stuff, and I'm eavesdropping because I'm a writer. And then finally we sit down after 45 minutes, and he goes, well, I didn't like your outline.
Oh.
And I said, well, you approved it, which was the magic thing to say, and I didn't know it. And Gillian said, you did approve it, Bill. And he went, oh, okay, then we have to go with it. And I'm like, what? And so I thought this tie-in thing is not going to be my thing in publishing. I'm not going to do this again. It's too weird. And he said, I want your novel to be more than a TV episode, more. I'm like, okay. So I was making all these subplots and this character development. I'm going nuts with my outline. And so he goes, so we had another conversation. He says, I could only afford 50 extras in a ballroom scene, but you could put in 300. So make it like that, like more than an episode. I'm like, oh, it's like make it more lavish, not necessarily more complex or more like a deep novel, make it fancier. Right. So one of the things he wanted, if you've ever watched Highlander, is that these guys are immortal and they whack off each other's heads. And when they whack off each other's heads, they get the energy of the other mortal guy. It's called a quickening. And he wanted a quickening in space. He wanted a quickening in midair. So I had them fall out of an airplane, and he was thrilled that I had thought of this. I'm like, this is weird. And I thought, I'll never do another tie-in in my life. This is too crazy. But obviously I didn't listen to myself, because the next tidbit, oh, that's an interesting show. So that was how, though. I was Highlander, and I was just crazy about Highlander. I loved that show. And that's how I got started.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome. I loved that show too. I watched all of it when it was doing reruns, when the Sci-Fi Channel first was a thing and good. They had that on, and they also had the spinoff of the show that I'm now blanking on the title of, with
Something
Ravenwood or
Ravenbird or Raven,
something like that. Yeah. I love that show. I thought Adrian Paul was a fantastic Duncan MacLeod. Great show. Love that show. So good.
Well, I watched that too. I watched 3 years of episodes in 1 week to be able to do my 13 plot thumbnails. And I would sit there like in a coma going, here we are.
That's awesome.
For many, many hours.
Oh, so awesome.
So before Teen Wolf, or before writing On Fire, how many episodes of Teen Wolf had you seen?
Well, I had seen, before writing it. By the time I wrote it, the whole first season had either been aired, or I think it had been aired. I think the whole first season, pretty sure, because my dilemma was that when I talked to the show, first it was funny because they had a conference call, and I figured out, they told me it made a list of all the people who were going to talk to me. And so I looked up everybody and got, okay. And then they all called and go, hi, Nancy, hi, Nancy. Hi. And I couldn't tell who was who. I'm like, oh crap, all that work I did, like, thank God I can see you guys. And so, so I was saying, I said, the problem that you have here is that you had a big mystery and you have a reveal, and I can't go there. And I don't remember if the show had run yet and you knew who the alpha was, or if it was going to be, it would happen before the book came out. But in either way, it couldn't have anything to do with, and the alpha is, you couldn't do that. And so I said, we have to do a sideways story, a story that doesn't affect the overall plot. So what to do? And they all fell kind of silent. And then somebody said, are you going to come to LA anytime soon? Because I used to live in San Diego. And so I said, actually, I am, because another book of mine was being recorded for audiobook, and I was going to go observe it. It was at the Warner Center, which is part of this whole conglomeration of Hollywood stuff. Will probably knows where it is.
I do.
And so I said, well, yes, I will be in LA. So I went to Jeff's office, and I think it was his office because it was in a beautiful condo complex. It was gorgeous. And I wanted to say, do you live here? But it had to be cool. And I had been very distracted when I got out of my car, and I walked up and knocked on the door, or whatever I did. And his assistant let me in, and I realized I left my notebook in the car. I'm like, oh my God. I said, I'm so sorry. And he goes, oh, no. Just go get some printer paper for her. So I'm writing on printer paper like, oh, I'm already making a bad impression, I'm sure. But what he said was, I've been trying to think of this problem that you posed. And he said, what about if they have some kind of a reunion? Like if werewolves have a family reunion. And so all the family, the Hale family comes back, and they come back to Beacon Hills, and there's some reason for that. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, can I do backstory? And he said, yes, you can do backstory. So one of the questions you were going to ask me was how much of it was Jeff and how it was me. I don't want to ever take credit from him. So I have to say, after all this time, I'm a little fuzzy, but I'm fairly certain that almost everything you read, like about, I know that Derek and Kate, I made that up. And I know that Stiles' mom dying, I made that up. And I know putting in Scott's, I'm trying to watch my language, bad dad, I made that up. So I'm pretty sure I made up the stuff. And so he gave me a lot of leeway, and I was really, really excited because it wasn't as nerve-wracking as Highlander ever been. And I had done Buffy, and he liked Buffy. So we talked about Buffy. And then when he found out that I was a Highlander fan, there was another connection. And he was just a very giving, very friendly, very generous person. And, I kind of, as I'm sure Will could go through this too, that people talk about, they're cynical about Hollywood and they're cynical about film and TV production. And really, people work super, super hard. And a lot of them are really, really nice people. And he's one of them. And I was really lucky that I got to have the meeting with him, because I truly wasn't, you never know how much leeway you have. You never know how much freedom you have. And I had several times where I thought of something in Buffy and they go, no, we're going to do that. You can't do that. Oh, okay. And so when I got to do all the things I got to do in that novel, I was really excited.
That's awesome.
Huh.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've definitely heard across the board that everyone who's worked with Jeff just says how great it was working with him. We haven't heard any bad things about him so far.
I'm starting to get a little choked up because he was so nice. He was such a cool guy. And I'm sorry, my path is not crossed with him again. I think they should have Criminal Minds novels. I don't know why they don't. I mean, at least 100 of them. There's 325 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as we've talked about, you wrote a lot of books in the Buffyverse, of which I own many, but do you find it's easier to write for something like Buffy, where the characters, I can't remember exactly whenever you came in, but where the show is ongoing and has a lot of established canon, or something like Teen Wolf, where you were jumping in pretty early when it only had like the one season aired?
Well, I'll tell you that my co-author, Christopher Golden, and I wrote the very first original Buffy novel that came out. Buffy had not yet aired. I knew what it was, and I was recommended and talked to an editor who had been bidding for the rights but didn't get them. And so I went to a friend of mine. I said, hey, I'm going to pitch for this show. You want to do it together? And we found out who the editor was. We pitched her on a Thursday. I think Friday we got our green light and we started working. We had 3.5 weeks to write this book. I'm not sure it's the first book that came out that was an original, but it was the first one written. And we wrote it from scripts that had not yet been aired. And so they FedExed them. I felt so Hollywood and San Diego. I get up, it's Tuesday, and I would go on my porch and there'd be a FedEx script of Buffy. And so I get my coffee like, oh, I'm so cool. And I read my Buffy. And before when we got started, we had like 6 or 7 scripts. And we created a dictionary and we called it Buffy Speak. And we concentrated, of course, because we're smart, on the episodes Joss wrote. So we had all these funny, like, especially if you watch the first like 6 episodes, the way they talk is so Valley Girls, like pause, Negley. And we did all of that, like really, really heavy. And over time, we realized that they lightened up, and so did we. There have even been books written by linguistics professors about Buffy Speak and Slayer language, or whatever they want to call it that week. And so I really did jump in right away on Buffy. And in Angel 2, I wrote the very first Angel novel, City of, which was the pilot. And I had to write an entire novel, and there's an episode isn't long enough for an entire novel. And so I wrote a novel guessing, and they said, no, this is too far afield from what we're planning. My editor told me later, she said, this is one of the best novels, tie-in novels I've ever read, and we can't publish it. So I had to rewrite it. And so there's always these questions. So when I got into Teen Wolf, I think I felt so welcomed by Jeff, and I felt given some direction by him, that I wasn't nervous, because it had already gone down the road a couple times of brand new shows. And on Angel, when I did the Angel book, I didn't even know what the actors were going to look like in the show. I'd IMDb them and look at their publicity pictures to see who they were. And so luckily, because there was so much crossover from Buffy, I know who those guys were. And so, but I didn't know what Doyle looked like, who is this guy? And so over time, you kind of learn. What you do is you absorb as much as you can. I watched interviews. I found pictures of actors, and you just glean, and then you kind of hope, and then you go. So, but it was very, very exciting, especially since I have been to Comic-Con and seen how absolutely crazy people were for Teen Wolf. I was like, whoa, I'm in on something really cool here. I felt really, really lucky.
Great.
It's wonderful.
Thank you.
So we have talked about this a little bit already, but when we interviewed Jeff for this podcast, he also mentioned Buffy. I don't remember exactly what the context was, but do you see some parallels between Buffy and Teen Wolf, having written in both of those worlds?
Absolutely. Buffy is the Slayer. She didn't know she was going to be the Slayer. She didn't pick being the Slayer, and she's in high school, and she's got all the high school angst and all the problems that high schoolers have. And so does Scott. He gets bitten, and he's like, "What? And what happened to me?" And he's in. The plus is that he doesn't have to use it as an inhaler anymore, but he's a hero called to the quest without his permission, and his quest is very muddy at first. It's like he just wants to survive and get the hell out of there. He's not aiming to be an alpha. He's not aiming to have a pack. He's just trying to figure it out. Buffy is more like, you are the knight in shining armor, kiddo. You are the one. You are it. And so she has a more majestic arc. But Scott is very much like her in that he has to keep it a secret. And if it comes out, it's like really bad. And, he's trying to protect his friends. Even at the beginning, Buffy is a Slayer, and she's the first Slayer to have friends. And so she has to protect her friends. Scott has to protect his friends. And there's so much of that, in the episodes where he's like, I can't wolf out now, or I have to make sure they're safe. And, he's so torn, and he's got so many loose ends going along. And the same thing, his mom doesn't know, and Joyce didn't know. And so their adults are like almost in another world at first. And so Giles is a sort of unusual mentor character in Buffy that Scott didn't have. Scott gets Derek, which not bad eye candy there either, I'm having to say. But having Superman on your side is not a bad idea. But so in many ways, there are a lot of parallels. In some ways, there are not. Scott does not get called to save the world at first. He gets called to save his family and his loved ones, but not the world. And over time, that does change. Also, what I loved was the increase in mythological characters as time went on. You thought vampires, well, no, it's demons. There's lots of demons, different kinds. And then in Scott's world, that all the different mythological creatures come along, and you're like, what? How did that happen? But there's everybody, well, I'm not just a math whiz, I'm a banshee, okay? And but it keeps it really fresh and interesting, and it gives him more puzzles, more, if it was always werewolves, it's like Scooby-Doo. I had a friend whose son, when he was little, he's like 6, he loves Scooby-Doo. And the dad, who was a writer, he said, why do you like Scooby-Doo so much? It's always a guy in a suit. He goes, but Dad, every week it's a different guy in a different suit. And it's not like that with these shows. They're much deeper than that, and they keep you like, how would I do that? And they keep you engaged and pull you in. And so both shows are like that. So I think there are a lot of parallels between Buffy and Teen Wolf. But I will say, Jeff created his own thing. It's not like Buffy Light or Buffy 2.0 or Buffy Reboot. It is Teen Wolf by Jeff, and it's his thing. And that's why I liked working on it, because it wasn't just, well, there's a girl, but he's a guy this time who's going to save the world, but he lives in Beacon Hills, not in Sunnydale, and so it's new, and I loved it because it was new, and it was different, and it was unusual. So in that way, they are different.
So you mentioned, knowing that Lydia was a banshee. Did you continue watching the show through to the end, or?
No, and I thought I would, and I was really bummed that I didn't. What happens when you're a freelance writer, which I'm sorry, I don't know about you guys' histories, some of you, but when you're a freelance writer, writing while an exciting adventure is also a job. and
Mm.
you have so many office hours and you have so much time to produce whatever you have to produce. You're on deadline almost all the time. And if you're not on deadline, you're hustling for the next job. And so I fully intended to finish the show. And then I got another job. And I also had hoped to do more than one book because I put in so much time learning about the whole series and the whole mythology. I knew you would ask me this, so I was trying to remember, when did I stop watching? I know Bianca Lawson was on, and I know, God, those two guys who they were like
Twins.
and then
Twins, yeah.
one person. I know they were still on.
Yeah.
I know Derek had come back, but that's in season 6, isn't it?
Well, he leaves at one point and then he comes back again. So yeah, I think you stopped watching sometime in season 3. It sounds like. Did you get to?
Yes.
Did you get to Void Styles, where Styles is like possessed by the Nikitsune?
No.
You should definitely go back and watch
Best
that at
season.
some point, because
That
that's the
might-
best season.
It's so good. It's
Best
our
season.
collective
Amazing.
favorite season is 3B. Yeah.
Well, it's funny. I don't know where to drop this in, but I used to have a rewatch, and I would do. I would announce the episode, and then what I would do to make people watch, I was on Twitter, and I would go 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And then everybody would watch it together. That was the only way I could figure out how to do it. But what I would do was I was going to Los Angeles a lot. So I'd stop at Disneyland and I'd buy keychains, and they would either say the name of the character or the actor, like Tyler or Derek, and I would give them away. And I would ask questions during the rewatch, like, what's Scott's lacrosse number? Or what color are Derek's eyes? Or what did Kate say 5 minutes in? And I would send them out as prizes. And I did it for a long time, and it was really fun. And so all of that, I had so much emotion and investment. And so I assumed I would watch the rest. And I kind of went like, I didn't finish. And it sort of took, I just got so busy, I realized I hadn't finished. And a couple years ago now, I'm so pandemically challenged, I don't know when time is.
Aren't we all at this point?
Yeah.
I got invited to appear in 2 Comic-Cons in Australia, and the 2 Tylers were there.
Nice.
And so they, of course, they didn't know I had written a book about them. Tyler Posey and Holland and Colton opened up the New York Stock Exchange while they were on the show, and they had copies of On Fire in their picture, like when they went.
Aww.
That's awesome.
But they do so many things, and they go so many. I wasn't sure he would remember. So I was in the green room at one of the 2 Australian comic book conferences or conventions, and they had this weird fancy coffee maker that would make all cappuccinos and all these things. And I just stood there like this, and Tyler Posey goes, "It's really complicated. I'll do it for you." I'm like, thank you. And then, Tyler Hecklin was sitting around just kind of eating, and I said, "How you doing?" And he said, "I'm fine." And I was always sort of weird because I'm not an actor, so people don't recognize me, and so they're like, "Who the hell are you?" And so he was eating and sitting. I said, "I wrote a book about you." And I said, "I wrote a Teen Wolf novel." And he said, "Oh, really?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I had met his baseball coach just by happenstance at a thing called the Maker Faire in San Francisco. And I just mentioned him, and she said, "Oh, I used to be one of his coaches when he played baseball." So I said, "I met your coach," and and we were talking, and I said, "Do you go to a lot of things like this?" And he goes, "Well, I do right now because I just bought a house."
Yeah.
He was really, really friendly and nice. And then we saw him in the hotel later. We were in the elevator. He came in, and I'm like, do I say hi? I mean, I went, "Hi, how are you?" And I thought, I'm trying not to fangirl you, but he's so handsome.
Very handsome.
That was the only time I saw Tyler Posey all weekend. I saw Tyler H much more than I saw Tyler Posey.
Tyler Posey's just the sweetest.
Oh,
He's delightful.
He absolutely is. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
On
Step on your toe
Fire,
as well.
no worries. On Fire is a very fast-paced and fun read, and it feels completely within the world of Teen Wolf. What was it like stepping into the world of a brand new show with Teen Wolf? Because it was so early in the life of the show that you were kind of getting in on the ground floor when it came to building mythology and testing the waters with these characters.
Well, it's funny because I reread the book before I got on today because I couldn't remember it. And I thought, what happened in that book? So I read it and I turned to my husband and I go, this is pretty good. Who wrote this? But what I liked about when I wrote it or when I was rereading it was the fast pace. And I think sometimes I have a tendency to over-explain things and not trust the reader. Mm-hmm. And I didn't in this one. I just went for it. The forest was on fire, ashes were coming down. And like, okay, I didn't like the forest, which was deciduous. I really did have a good pace. And I do remember what I did was I downloaded all the music I could find of that had been on the show. And I wrote to the music and I kept it loud and I kept it pounding and it was good. Somebody said the music on Teen Wolf is Euro trash. And I'm like,
oh my God.
Yeah, they said it's Euro trash. And I thought, no, it fits with that kabuki thing I was talking about. And it was just awesome. So I'd get up every single morning. And what I used to do is I used to have a big desktop and I would turn it on, Snapple, to go boom like that. And I go, engage number one. And then I would drink my coffee and listen to my Teen Wolf soundtrack and kind of get into it. And I'd go like this. I'd physically go, okay. And then I get started. And I think I just never paused. I just kept working and I didn't mull. And I'm a terrible overthinker, muller. Well, what would that mean? I didn't do that. I just went for it. And I think that's why the pace was fast. And I also kept watching and rewatching the episodes over and over and over and trying to keep track of how fast they were. And just as an aside, I did something where I was watching the movie Scream by Kevin Williamson. And every 15 minutes, if you watch that movie, it's almost exact. Every 15 minutes, a major plot point occurs. And I'd sit there like, yep. And so on Teen Wolf, it's the same thing. It was like, boom, boom, boom. This happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. And I'm like, okay, I got it. And I'd go, okay. And I'd start writing. So that was how I jumped in. I just jumped in. I tried not to give myself the out of being the angsty author sitting in her room thinking, I had to work and it was fun because it was such a cool show. So you wanted to be there and you wanted to find out what was going to happen next. As a writer, you, me. So.
Yeah, I definitely love the pace of the book. It's fantastic. And I love all the backstory. It absolutely broke my heart whenever young Derek encounters Styles and his family. Did you have any other ideas for like prequel stories involving like the Hales, the Argents, or Stilinskis, or anyone else?
Oh God, everybody, all the writers I know do, and I would have loved to have like the Teen Wolf family album. I would give it to me. I'll do that. I'll do anything, but it did not happen. And so when you're doing something like this, I kept track of what I had decided, but not everything that's on the page. If I allude to something, I'm not always sure what I meant, like in the sense of, I know you're going to ask me because Kate is mad about some guy. She's pissed off. I didn't even think about it. I just thought she's the kind of woman who would be pissed off by some guy. She's just, Kate. So she would have some bitterness. She would have some rage over something because, well, I guess in this way I did do backstory because I thought, why is she such a H? And why is she so awful?
It's kind of from Buffy.
Like when she does the cattle prod, she's like, I mean, the Argents were like, it's the code of the hills. We got to kill them if they try to kill us. And she's like, hell no, I'm just torturing him. I'm enjoying torturing him. And she was icky. And so, and that, stuff. So that's what made me think, okay, she's got some backstory, not maybe just with werewolves, but with male werewolves. And that was something was going on with her besides that. So while I didn't go, okay, and that will be, I didn't have a decision tree like Lydia's decision tree. I didn't say that, but I did think, well, I'll give her this. I will give her this kind of problem.
I thought the decision tree was such a great detail, and I definitely didn't expect that, but yeah, it was fantastic.
Thank you. It was very hard to type it in. I typed it in, but
do you think that Derek knew that was Styles? Like as an adult, do you think once he met Styles, he knew that was him? And how do you think that would, if he did, how do you think it would affect his relationship with Styles?
I think he did not, or I would have had him think about it in a scene or say something to him, when you were a kid. I think that part of it was almost like, when you and I might, well, like you said, you were at Comic-Con. I'm like, dang, I didn't see you, but we were both there, and I might have passed you, and I might have gone, oh, cute outfit or whatever, but I didn't know it was you. And so I think in that way, that was how I imagined it, that they had been like ships passing in the night and everybody's got their own thing and they just did not process. And I think also, I know I have the friends, the daughters and sons of friends who are graduating from high school and stuff. And we were together in Girl Scouts and all these things. And they look so different now. They're grown up. And I remember when they were these little 6-year-olds, singing about turtles, and now they're oh, I'm going to major in biochemistry, and I'm like, oh. And they don't look the same. So I think that it makes sense to me that they wouldn't recognize each other. So to me it was kind of ships passing in the night, almost like Easter eggs.
Yeah, I really loved the stories, how they like cross paths without actually talking to one another.
Well, I was nervous because I was worried that this was Jeff territory and not Nancy territory. I was pretty anxious about, but I just sent it in like, okay, what do you think? Oh, you liked it. Oh, good. I hope this isn't stepping on your toes. So
I can imagine that's a delicate line to walk there.
It is.
What drew you to writing about the relationship between Derek and Kate? Because that is a relationship that's a pretty big part of On Fire, and there's a lot more detail in the book than really there ever is in the show.
Right. Well, I was laughing too because it was like, meanwhile, Allison and Scott smell smoke. And this happens. Meanwhile, there's some more smoke. So I was chuckling, like they're kind of like, okay, I'm going to use them. Just hold on. I got them over here like salt and pepper shakers. But it was sort of like Derek and Kate, the unveiling. And I think it was because I was always so taken with that whole cattle prod business and the fire. It was just so huge and so awful. And what the heck was that about, and how she was a maverick. And I think that's what fascinated me about it. And I think that's why I spent so much time on it in the book. It's a lot of time in the book. But it was, I wanted to give, if you have a fight on a show, you divide people up, so Aragorn is over here and Legolas is over there and Gimli's over there. And then they're all doing their different fights and then they fight together. And so everybody had to have their own little stories for somebody to fight against. So Scott and Allison were stuck in the fire and he couldn't explain to her that I can't get past these bushes because a certain kind of wood is like antimatter for me. And then Derek and Kate, I needed backstory because they couldn't really have an ongoing adventure because I would intrude on the continuity of the show. So I had to go backwards. And so that's why you go back into their past, because I can't really go into their future or their present. And so without just doing a retread of what's on the show. So in that way, the parts were intended to fill out more information about each set of characters. And because I couldn't go forward with those two guys, then I went backwards. And the same thing with Jackson and Lydia and all that, with him getting kidnapped. I wanted to give him some action. I wanted him to have a presence. So I wanted to give him an adventure. And I really liked Lydia anyway. Lydia is this sort of Cordelia of she's a little cagier and well, I don't know if she's cagier, but yeah, she's cagey. So so in that way, I wanted to give those sets of people some space in the book, some real estate, and something to do. And so because I couldn't move Derek and Kate forward, I moved them backward. And that's why their backstory is so prominent.
It's great backstory. It was a lot of, not fun to read, but it was compelling. Like, because you're definitely, you know something from the show, but you don't get answers. Right. And these are the answers, that you're getting in this version of the story. And it was always compelling because honestly, there were times where it was like, oh, and Scott and Allison are doing. So I was like, come on. You're in the woods. I got it. You smell smoke. We have to get back to the other story. I'm ready to, I need to know. I have so many questions I need answered. Yes. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, I also like, because in the show, especially in the first few episodes, Derek is so menacing and so powerful. And you're like, dang, I'm not screwing with that guy. And then you see how vulnerable he was and, how he was wounded. I mean, he loved her.
Right.
And so the idea that he had layers, as we say, he had stuff to deal with. And he had tragedy, and he wasn't just like, he wasn't. And I also loved writing Steric. I love Stiles and Derek. I love them. And I think they should have an animated series called Steric.
Oh my God. Yes, please.
Oh, I would love it. So.
I actually just told a fan that we were talking to on Instagram that I feel like every Steric fan needs to read On Fire. Well, yes. all Teen Wolf fans should, but especially the Steric fans, because I feel like there's so much there for them.
Thank you. Because that was my intention, and I just love that pairing. They kind of remind me, although they are their own thing, they kind of remind me of Xander and Angel, or Xander and Spike. Would you not do that? Ooh, dead boy. And you're cold. You're not wrong. That kind of snarky. But it was scarier snarky. And that made me love Stiles even more, because Derek would go like, I'm going to kill you. And he might. He really might. We didn't really think Angel would, or Spike, maybe Spike, but they wouldn't really kill Xander. But Derek, at first, you think, he might really kill this guy. No, wait, would he really kill this guy? And it was scary. So, yeah. Thank you.
I just love all their scenes together. And I feel like you did such a great job writing Stiles. And how he doesn't back down whenever Derek is threatening him. He just keeps on going. And I feel like that's so true to the show.
He's like, and I can see him going like, I should shut up. I'm not shutting up.
Right.
Yeah, we've discussed them on the podcast before as unstoppable force meets immovable object, right? Which is like,
where were you when I was writing this? Right, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I also definitely wrote a little like post on Tumblr when I read the book that I was like, would you like to know what the book says about Derek and Stiles? I don't care what your answer is. The answer is you're getting it. I'm going to describe it in excruciating detail. So I know you're thinking, well, if it's going to be this long, why don't I just read the book? And yes, that's the point.
Thank you.
Yes. We're a very pro Steric podcast.
Oh, me too. Yeah. I'm Steric. I am so Steric. Yeah. I am Steric. I'm looking at my hair. I haven't had a haircut in a year and a half, and I get one on July 31st, so I only have like 6 more weeks to go. But it's all these different colors, very long. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's cute. Kate, I think you're up.
Yes. So it's a related question. and kind of going off of what Will said about how, you're watching the show and you have a lot of questions, and we get some lines of dialogue that kind of imply things, right? Like in the tell, in the scene you were talking about with the cattle prod, and Kate says, "You think I'm lying?" and Derek says, "It wouldn't be the first time." So we get these like little bitty tidbits, but we don't really ever get much information about what happened, except we do in the book. And while the show kind of glossed over some of the details of that, like the age difference between them and the issue of consent, On Fire didn't. It feels very like connected to real world issues. Like the fact that she drugs his drink feels very connected to real world issues instead of more like sublimated fantasy. So was that intentional?
Yes. And I think what happened was when Buffy came on the air, Dawson's Creek was on the air. And in Dawson's Creek, if you ever watched Dawson's Creek, you probably all watch Buffy on reruns, but when Buffy was on the air, the one of the main storylines of Dawson's Creek was this teacher was having an affair with a 15-year-old boy.
Pacey.
And I was like, oh my God, I mean, shocked. And so I thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And I did it, but I wanted it to feel like a real world. I've been reading a lot of books about the Disney Imagineers and all the things that the Imagineers do. And they say there's a big difference between make-believe and fake-believe. And I wanted this to be that make-believe of werewolf, but I wanted it to feel real. I didn't want it to feel fake. And I've written a lot of young adult material, and this book was poised sort of in the world, since MTV is considered like a youth channel. It was considered like a young adult, young people, hip people kind of book. And so I didn't want it to read like fake believe. I wanted it to be real. I started writing young adult novels so many years ago when it was very squeaky clean. It was like the Babysitter's Club kind of books. And so when young adult material got more adult, got more realistic, then it took me a while, like, is this okay to write about now? They're taking drugs and they're drinking. And it was funny because there used to be little guidelines like, in your novel, the teens may have sex, but they should not drink. And like, okay, sure, all right, no problem. And you're kind of like, what was the decision there? And I did comment. I was reading Gossip Girl, and I commented to my editor, not Teen Wolf, but another editor, and he said, geez, these are pretty racy. And she said, it's aspirational. I said, well, who is aspiring? Who is aspiring to do this? And she started laughing, and she said, it's just the idea of that much freedom. It's that much, just like lifestyles of the rich and famous, lifestyles of the people without parents, that you can do whatever you want. And that was also the driving force for a lot of the apocalyptic fiction, dystopian fiction that came out. It's kind of died down now, but it was huge. And I was talking to Scott Westerfeld, who wrote Uglies and Pretties, which were some time ago now, but it was a huge thing back then. And he said, what is the appeal of apocalyptic dystopian Hunger Games kind of stuff? And he goes, 2 words, no school. You have some kind of agency. You can drive cars and you can buy cars and you can do stuff, and you don't have to get your permission slip signed. You can just freaking do it. And I think for that reason, when Derek gets together with Kate and all those kinds of like, really, it's more real lifey to me than presenting a world where, as a kid once said to me, oh, that's just TV talk. I was telling him something else. That's just TV talk. Like, that's not what you really think. That's what you think you have to tell me. And so that's what I liked. I liked being really truthful in that way. And, sometimes you, as an adult writing, you think, am I supposed to inspire people here? What am I supposed to do here? Why am I doing this? Am I saying, hey kids, you too can have affairs with teachers? Or am I just saying, what would happen if you loved somebody you thought you weren't up to snuff? Because he doesn't think he's as cool as she is. He's not at the time. And how do you deal with that? And the embarrassment, he throws up in her bathroom and he thinks it's over, and, all those kind of first time things. And that's what I liked about their relationship, although it was very sad. It was that you saw Derek having a lot of firsts and being, in a way, a kid. So.
I thought your handling of it was just really incredible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So I know we talked about the amazing dynamic between Stiles and Derek, but who is your favorite character to write in On Fire? And also, just for my own personal knowledge, who's your favorite to write in the Buffyverse?
Oh, well, I do think it had to be Stiles. Although I have noticed upon my reread that there's a lot of Derek in the book. Scott, I have to be honest, to me, Scott is not as prominent. He has a problem, and he's got Allison, and all those things are really neat. I loved when they went to the cheesy motel. That I liked it very much. But in real life, Stiles would be my favorite. And when I wrote Buffy, Xander was my favorite, and Xander and Cordelia, and Anya too. But that kind of snarky, as Cordelia would say, tact is just saying stuff that's not true. And so I love that snarky, smart aleck kind of quippy dialogue and that kind of comeback. And I like that Xander was like Stiles upfront about his shortcomings or his own perceptions of himself. I just watch. I'm just the watcher. I'm not that cool guy. But what Gail Berman, who was one of the people who brought Buffy to TV, what she said, we will have more Buffys when we have more Xanders. And Xander was a very compliant second in command. You are my leader, which is what Spike said to her. You are my leader. I will do what you say. This is what Buffy wants us to do. Let's go do it until season 6 or 7. And same with Stiles in a way. He's like, Scott, well, what the heck? Okay, I'll go. I'm very into Sherlock Holmes right now, and he's Dr. Watson. Only he's he's like a Jude Law, Dr. Watson.
I love that comparison. It's great.
So this is a little bit of a non sequitur, but you wrote a tie-in novel for the children's show Wishbone, which I adored as a child. And you talked a little bit about how the young adult genre has changed over time. How do you go about tailoring your writing to different age groups?
I loved Wishbone. I actually also was in a book of spooky stories, and I redid a Charles Dickens story for Wishbone. What happened with Wishbone is kind of funny. I'll just tell you sort of anecdotally. A bunch of friends and I all tried out for Wishbone, and people weren't getting Wishbone books. And I talked to the editor on the phone. There was a sort of a scout, and she would sort of get you ready to audition. And so she was talking about Wishbone and what Wishbone was like. And it was very detailed and very, very went on. And then she had a list of books. And she said, okay, let's see, what books do I have left? She's going, I have this and this. I don't know why nobody wants Ivanhoe. And I said, I love Ivanhoe. I'd never read Ivanhoe. Love Ivanhoe? And I'm like, yes, I love Ivanhoe. And she said, you got it. She said, okay, so write me a sample, write me an outline. And so I went to the Barnes and Noble and I looked at the thing, and Ivanhoe, it's like, here's a book, here's Ivanhoe, here's a book. And I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? So every night I divided up the number of pages by about how long I thought I had to work on this thing. and I would like doze off and wake up. And the thing that I'm trying to get to is that Ivanhoe is very anti-Semitic, and Ivanhoe, the knight named Ivanhoe, is the least anti-Semitic, but he's still pretty bad. He lets the tired Jew, come and sit by the fireplace, and everybody else is like, wow, what the heck, dude? And he's like, well, he's tired and he's hungry. And he goes, yeah, but he's a Jew. And he goes, I know, but what are you going to do? So, and he defends Rebecca, who is Jewish and has been accused of witchcraft because she won't get together with the knight who's accused her. And that's the guy Ivanhoe jousts. So there's a lot of anti-Semitism in Ivanhoe. And if you watch the Wishbone episode, when Isaac and Rebecca are riding on their horses or donkeys or wherever they are, Isaac has a tall pointed hat on, and that was required of Jewish men to wear. And that's where we get dunce caps. And so, yes. So there was like, are we going to go there? Because in every Wishbone book at the time, they had some kind of extra material. And I had suggested, there was a lot of talk in the book, trust me, a lot of the difference between Norman and Saxon words. So for like pork and swine are two different, one is Saxon and one is French and Norman. And so I thought it was interesting. So I made this whole list of Norman and Saxon words. Well, my editor said that's boring. Little kids won't like that. So we actually talked about what was a Jewish person and what was the deal, what was going on there. And so it's in there about a little bit of discussing it in a very cautious way, because it's a book about Ivanhoe and Wishbone. It's not a book about Judaism. Mm-hmm. And so that was weird. And so to go into that as in a children's book, I kept thinking, what if a Jewish kid reads this book? Because I was a library mom at an elementary school, and do you have the book about the plague? It's still on hold. Everybody wanted to read this American Girl book about the plague, but anyway, so I didn't want a Jewish child to read this book and go, wait a minute, what? Because I remember going to the Princess Diaries, and I remember watching the Princess Diaries and thinking, you guys are blowing it, because it would be like, you know what, Kate? Even though you're a girl, you could rule the kingdom. And the little girls I knew would have gone, well, I knew that. Why are you telling me that? What is wrong that you have to tell me? Is there a catch here? And doubt. And so this kind of like, the Jews are very special people. Just be nice to them. It was like, I have not converted to Judaism, but I'm very interested in Judaism. And so I would have, as a kid, gone, what's the what here? Why are they making such a big deal out of this? It's like when parents go, oh, so Aunt Matilda is coming and you're going to really like her. And you go, uh-oh. And so that kind of weird overstating and being, cautious in children's world, world of children's books, that makes me antsy. And I don't worry about that when I'm writing for adults. They're adults. But when it's a kid and when it's a young adult, then that's when I feel a little squeakier, a little more worried. If Dawson's Creek hadn't come on, I don't know how free I would have felt to have Derek and Kate have their relationship. I don't know. But somebody else did it first. And so it was kind of in the world. But for kids, young kids, and for Wishbone kids, I felt a responsibility to make them feel better and feel good and feel smart and empowered after they read Wishbone. Not like, here are the problems of the universe, small child, and you're going to face them someday.
Bear them.
Yeah. And what I liked about the Wishbone series was the creator, Kevin Ryan, created Wishbone because he felt guilty, because when he was a little kid or an elementary school kid, he read what were they called? Golden Comics Classics Illustrated. And they were like comic books of Ivanhoe and comic books of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And he did book reports on them. And so reading the real books. So did I. And so I thought I had met my kindred spirit. And as I mentioned, so many of my friends worked so hard to try to get Wishbone books. And of my little in group, I was the only one who made it. And my scout said, "Oh, you are the Wishbone girl now. You're going to get so much Wishbone work. You're going to be so happy. We have these super mysteries and we have all these things. It's going to be great." I'm like, "Oh my God." And my little sister sent me a Wishbone doll. You pulled his tail, he'd go, "Don't go there." And I was so excited. And the next week, the entire program was canceled.
Oh,
All gone. And the editor who was in charge of me, actually, I think his name was Kevin Ryan. Maybe that was not the name of the creator of the show. Yeah, that's not right. Anyway, my editor, Kevin Ryan, had moved to Texas to run the Wishbone publishing program, and it was gone, and he had to go home. So now it's driving me crazy. Who created Wishbone? I'm gonna have to look that up. So.
Did you ever figure out what happened? Like why there was such a turnaround on that?
No, I do know that before we came along, because I was with Simon and Schuster, I'm pretty sure. Before that, there was another publisher for a while, and they like went away, and then we came up, and then we went away. And so I don't know. A lot of times things that happen with things like this may have happened with Teen Wolf. I do not know. Are arguments over or rights. We have the right to get the money for this license, because what happens is any of these things that we're talking about together, I worked on licensed products. And so what that means was the publisher has paid the production company or the distribution company, somebody who has the right, they've paid them a license to be able to create material. And it's usually very, very detailed. Like we can do fiction. We can do nonfiction of more than 10,000 words. We can do. And I actually, when I was writing Buffy, I killed Kennedy. And they said, "You can't kill Kennedy." We paid like $1 million to have Kennedy. So because each character, they would have to pay for the character, or they'd have to pay for something, all kinds of different kinds of rules. And so all of these things were licensed. And so sometimes once you do something and you have a book or you have a new product, somebody in the mix goes, "Wait a minute, that's what we get paid for." "No, you don't." "Yes, we do." And they have a fight and they quit. They don't do it. Like there was another show around that time called Joan of Arcadia. And I was dying to write Joan of Arcadia books, but they had a fight over the rights. So they never did them. So it was stuff like that. And I wonder if it was something like that. I don't know. But I was really sad. And I thought there should be more seasons of Wishbone too.
That could definitely. I'm sorry.
I was going to say Amy Acker was in the Ivanhoe episode.
Oh
yeah.
gosh.
Amy Acker. I know.
So cool.
I know. MTV or not MTV. Teen Wolf is kind of notorious for not having merchandise. Super popular. You can't find official stuff. And I do know that MTV and MGM, Viacom all butted heads over that, because you're right, it's all licensing stuff, like who gets what are percentages and things like that. And that's why you can't get there weren't official merchandise toys, toys and stuff like that until like Funko came along and was like, "We're just going to give you a lot of money," and somebody figures it out. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happened with the books, where it's just like who owns what part and how do they get paid and all that. Because you're right, at some point someone's just like, "Well, that's a lot of work. I'm not going to worry about it." And it's like, well,
that makes sense to me, because I was going to sign Teen Wolf at Los Angeles Comic-Con. And when I got there, I couldn't find the booth. And finally somebody said, "Oh, it doesn't say Nancy Holder. It says MTV Books." I thought, "Oh, really?" And so people kept saying, "Are you with MTV? Are you with MTV?" I'm like, "Well, kind of, and so that makes perfect sense to me. I see. Well, yeah, that makes sense.
Unfortunate.
Before we move entirely away from the subject of Wishbone, I would just like to say that Child Me would have really enjoyed that appendix with words that were Saxon words versus Norman words.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel understood. But yeah, if you ever read Ivanhoe, which is a long haul, yeah, it's very interesting because they have a whole thing about it. It's really cool.
I probably won't read Ivanhoe, but I have made a mental note to read Ivanhound now. So
I just love Wishbone.
So I loved all the stuff in On Fire about Wolf Moon. What kind of research did you do before getting into writing? Did you do anything like about like learning about like Wolf Moon and like cultures and everything like that?
No.
Just made it all up. Okay. Wasn't sure.
But I have a series that I co-wrote with another writer called it's the Wicked Saga. It's called Wicked Witch, Wicked, anyway, all these wicked things. And it actually came out around the time that our Broadway Wicked came out. People go, wow, you wrote Wicked. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, dang, what's it like to have a show on Broadway? I'm like, oh, not that Wicked. But it was the series that got me on the New York Times bestseller list. So I'm very happy with Wicked. But for that, we did a ton of research. And it's all very Wicca, and it's very moons, and it's spells, and all the stuff in it is true, or not true, correct. So what amethyst is supposed to do, and what is this? And for example, if you've ever heard, there's a song called Parsley, Sage, Rosemary, and Thyme that Simon and Garfunkel sing. The lyrics are actually a spell, and it's from the Middle Ages, and it's a love spell. So we knew all that stuff. So I came into Teen Wolf with all of that background. I mean, it probably took us a year to do all that research. So I already knew that kind of stuff. So that I could pull it out. I already had it. So I didn't do any additional research, except I'm not sure how we decided if it was Wolf Moon or if that just seemed obvious, or maybe Jeff said it. I don't know. I don't remember. But thank you. Awesome.
Very cool. What is the process like writing a novel set in a pre-established world compared to a story that is completely your own that you're setting out to tell?
Actually, a lot of people think that writing tie-in novels is somehow confining, and it's not, because once you are in that universe, you can go so many different ways, and your publisher and usually the production company will go with you. So you could say, I want to write a funny Teen Wolf, or I want to write a creepy Teen Wolf, or I want to write a mystery, I want to write an adventurous Teen Wolf. And they'll go, oh, okay, great. Because the show is the characters and the mythology. But then after that, then you can go all kinds of different ways. So with Buffy, we had funny Buffy stories and romantic Buffy stories. And you could go so many ways. Whereas, for example, when I wrote my Wicked books, they had to all be like each other. And so you see a lot of writers, like if you write the Hunger Games and then Mockingjay is a comedy, then you go, wait a minute, that's not right. That's not the way this goes. And so you have the way this goes kind of problem. And when you write in somebody else's universe, you already have a fandom, and the fandom will usually go with you as long as you don't make a mistake. Gotcha. And as long as you don't take the story somewhere they wouldn't go.
Gotcha.
Like when people got mad when Tara died, or like when Kennedy showed up, the fandom got Ripley. And so if you write about things, for example, when Buffy was ending, there was talk about bringing Angel back for some episodes. And so I assumed Angel and Buffy were going to be the ones to get together, that it wasn't going to be Buffy and Spike. It was going to be Buffy and Angel. So I wrote a novel, and in the novel, which takes place around then, Buffy and Angel get together. And the Spike fandom was furious. And people wrote letters to 20th Century Fox and said I should never be allowed to write another book.
Oh my God.
They created a secret website called the Sparklies, and they, on the day that book came out, they put 91-star reviews up on Amazon. And it was a concerted effort to make the book fail, because they wanted to send a message that they wanted Spike in the Buffy books. So I said, please get the word out to these guys. The show is ending. And so the publishers and everybody are waiting to see if they will be able to have enough people buy the books to make it worth it to keep publishing Buffy books. If you ruin a Buffy book right now, they just won't have any Buffy books, and you will never get your Spike and Angel or Spike and Buffy book. And so they took the reviews down. But that's the kind of stuff you kind of have to, that's the icky part. And somebody warned me that I was going to go to this function at UCLA, a Buffy Fest. And they said, somebody's going to come up to you and talk to you about Buffy and Angel and Buffy and Spike. And they have a tape recorder in their pocket and they're going to record you. So be careful what you say. And I wish I had it in here, but I have a Spike t-shirt and I wore my Spike t-shirt to that event. It was like my bulletproof vest or something.
Your armor.
Yeah, I was pretty nervous, but I wasn't super nervous. You know?
It's like when you travel out of the country and you put a Canadian flag on your background.
Yes.
So yeah, this isn't.
I'm
actually,
from good North America.
Right, I'm from the
Maybe
good
you've
part.
heard of me.
Exactly, we're America's hat. So, but this isn't in the doc, but I just popped in my head. When it comes to writing your own original stuff, are you a planner or a pantser?
Super planner. I plan it. I have 2 books that I read and reread, and one is called Save the Cat, and one is called Writer's Journey. And I buy file cards and I put out the beats just like you probably did when you were writing scripts. And I put out all the beats and I put the acts and I get it all straightened out. And then every morning I look at my card and then I get to work. So looks like somebody needs to charge their battery. And so I am very much of a plotter, not a pantser. I'm a plotter. I'm a planner. Now, when I write short stories, I'm not. Then I just go for it. But
that's cool.
When I do that, I plan a lot.
That's really cool. Before I worked on Teen Wolf, I just flew by the seat of my pants. I was like, I kind of have some idea. I know it's some plot points. I'm just gonna whatever happens. But then because of Teen Wolf, because like we're making a TV show and everyone's waiting that you have to have outlines, you have to have drafts like ready to go. So now I can't not do that anymore. Like I'm very much I have to have my acts broken down and like my plot journey and my emotional journey. I got to know what's going on so I can know what's happening.
That's me too. 100%. And I have friends who go, oh, I don't do that. I just find my way. And like 3 years later, they're working on the same thing. I'm still finding my way, Okay, enjoy that life, I just get up and I go, okay, what? And if I get stuck, I write out, what is the goal of this section? Why am I doing this? And one of the advantages of Teen Wolf and Buffy was because everybody loved all the characters, I shifted points of view. And sometimes if you don't have a good reason to shift a point of view, people are like, well, why am I reading about this guy now? But that's another reason why it's so much fun to write in somebody else's universe, is you get to experience all the characters who are so loved.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Were there ever any shows that you are a fan of that you would have liked to have done a tie-in for but didn't get a chance?
Joan of Arcadia. I would have loved to do Joan of Arcadia. Let me think for a minute, because there were some. There are some. God, what was it called? It was on for 2 years. I think it was called American Dreams or something. I can't remember. I wrote 2 books on a show called Saving Grace, starring Holly Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really loved that show. I loved that show so much. I thought the ending was just a mess. I was very upset with the last episode, and it was canceled quick. It was canceled, I think, in the 3rd season, partly because they weren't making enough money in DVD sales and foreign sales. And so they just decided the network wanted to continue they asked to renew for another year, and the production company said no, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
And Holly Hunter was in it, and she's this way out of control cop in Oklahoma, and she thinks that she's murdered somebody in a drunken hit and run. She goes, oh God, please save me. And that is when her guardian angel Earl shows up.
Yeah.
And I wrote 2 Saving Grace books, and I just loved that show. And I would have liked to write more Saving Grace.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, how did writing for Teen Wolf compare to writing for Buffy and Angel? You said you got a chance to actually go to set for Buffy and Angel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think aggregate, I was thinking about it one day. I think I spent about a month on set up there. Well, part of the reason for that was that I wrote the episode guidebooks. And when Buffy came on the air, they did not have a show Bible. They didn't have anything written down. And they used our books, our episode guidebooks, as their show books, their Bibles.
Wow.
So that was really cool.
Yeah.
But we went up there, and my co-author Chris Golden and I went up there, and we got to walk on the sets, and we talked to Joss, and it was all very heady and very fun. And I got to go to the Christmas party. I got a big bag of goodies, like a really cool leather satchel that's a Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I have a crew t-shirt, and I had little tchotchkes and a lunchbox, and they were really, really, really nice to me. And I, at first, when I get up there, I had a liaison, and her name was Caroline. And Caroline, I would say, I would like to talk to James Marsters. And she'd go, okay, hold on. And then she'd go and she'd say, okay, James can see you at 10 o'clock. Like, okay. And it was very formal. And, Charisma can do, okay. And then after a couple of days, he said, you know what, just go up to anybody you want. That was in the first of these books was the first 2 seasons. And it was still kind of a cult hit, as they say, which is a way of saying, we didn't think it'd be this popular. After that, in 3rd and 4th season, they got, again, more formal because they were more popular. And the actors were feeling their oats. To be honest, it's like I have people now. Before it's like I'm on this weird little show, and I would talk to people on the show, and they would say, my agent didn't want me to do this. He thought I was crazy. I could have been on NCIS or whatever. And I picked Buffy, and they were really mad at me because it's such a wacky, bizarre thing. And it's not going to last. And so, they were like loving that we loved them and that we were promoting them. And it was like the little show that could. And then it became Buffy. And then it was like more formal again. But by then I'd been there so much that people knew who I was. They often didn't know what I did, but I stayed there long enough where I can have lunch with you, but you don't ask me to do anything because I'm not part of the crew. I'm not part of the cast. I'm just here. But you know me, you go, oh, hi, how you doing? And you might think, now, what was her name? But I was there enough where I wasn't an anomaly anymore. And the second episode guidebook that I had proposed the idea was we took a whole episode from the pre-production, the beginning, and we went all the way through broadcast. And how do you do that? I have to say that we didn't get the coolest episode. We got the Iron Team. But we could have had something really juicy. I wanted Hush, but we didn't get Hush. So but they had this big room where they had these folding tables, and all the department heads sat at the tables with the script, and they go, okay, and they turn the page. And then, for example, I was there one day when the head of costuming said, Sarah wants another change of clothing, and they all stopped. And somebody said, well, why would she change her clothes? And she said, Sarah wants a change of clothing. And they're like, okay, how could we do this? And it was like, okay, they ran in. It was maybe it was when they fell into the bay. I don't remember, but they made it so she could have another change of clothes. And then they go, okay, we can't do this on that day because of X. Okay. And then they'd fix it. And so I was there. And I was there as the book person, but I wasn't part of them, but I was there observing. And they all kept going like, why is she here? But I was observing the department heads doing the pre-production and seeing what they do when they have pre-production. So they knew me, and they'd say like, oh, what'd you get for lunch? What are you having today? Or, and a couple times my liaison couldn't make it. And she was supposed to come downstairs and tell the security guard it's okay to let her in. And so the first time I came, she was ill, and she was, or not the first time, but the first time that I came when she wasn't there, they had to call up and say, okay, there's this girl here and her name is X. And they're like, okay, hold on, I'll find out. And after that, it was all, hi, Nancy, the security guard. Hi, Nancy. I go, hi, is Caroline here? No, she's not here. Go on up. Like, okay. So I was more kind of around, but I never was part of, oops, I'm sorry. I was never part of the gang. I was a friend. I was like an ally of Buffy, but I wasn't in the mix,
Right.
I was definitely still visiting, but I was a welcome visitor. And I wish that there had been some reason to go on set for Teen Wolf. I really do. But it was fun just to meet Jeff, and it was fun later to meet the boys. But they're not that old, but there was no reason, and it happened fast. It was over. And that made me really sad. I would have loved to continue writing in Teen Wolf. It's such clever writing. And this total, as we said, that total hysteric thing was hysterical and really fun to write. So.
We would have loved to have had
It would have
more
been,
Teen Wolf books from you.
It would have been wonderful. So just this other set of adventures, that it's like the other adventures and
the side notes, notes of Beacon Hills.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been fun. That would have been a lot of fun. So.
I know. Well, I think it's great that you guys are perpetuating it. It's wonderful.
Yes, ma'am. No,
There's still so many new fans out there because it's now on Hulu and it's gone to like Amazon. So new people are finding it every day.
And I think people see Tyler as Superman, and then they move over like, oh, what else?
Right.
Oh, what is this? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If Superman had never been created, I don't what would have happened? I'm like, he's in another Superman thing. Wow. So yeah.
Yeah, we're also watching.
I would have watched The Witcher. What? I'm sorry, what?
We're also watching Superman and Lois right now.
Oh, excellent. Love it.
It's very good. It's very good. All right. Well, we are barreling right into the end here. Kate, you want to do this question?
Yeah. Have you ever had any interesting interactions with Teen Wolf fans?
Well, I did have when I had my rewatch on Twitter, I got to know some of the people pretty well. It was kind of funny because I'd have these contests and some of the same people kept winning. I'm like, I didn't think of that. You only won 3 times or what, there was a pretty good group. It wasn't like only 6 people watched, but some people know Teen Wolf, or they would guess, like, I don't know if you ever watch, because me being a Disney freak, I watch these Disney vlogs, and there's one guy that he'll have a hidden Mickey, and I go, if you saw it, and he's Australian, he goes, if you saw that hidden Mickey, tell me what time you saw it. No, you put you in for the prize. And so I, on the Teen Wolf rewatch, I'd say, what did Kate say at 7:12? And somebody would have gone, I knew she's going to ask that, and they win. So so that was kind of weird, but I got to know some of the people pretty well. And so through various fandoms, you guys probably do the same thing. You make friends with people who are fellow fans, and then you have a new fandom, or you keep your friendship going after, even though maybe your interest in the show or whatever may have lessened, you're still friends with that person. And so some of the Teen Wolf fans and I are still friends. And so that is cool. And then when there was a really nice review in French of the novel recently, and somebody tweeted about it on Twitter, and in French, and I'm like, zoot, go Wolfies, and they're like, so that is cool. That is really cool when it's lasted so long, and that makes me so happy. So that in that way, I have had interactions with fans.
Really cool. Absolutely. I wish I'd known about that at the time. I wasn't on Twitter, I think, whenever you were doing the rewatches, but that would have been really fun.
Really fun. And it was so fun because I'd go up to Disneyland, and I love to shop, and so I like to spend money. And so I'd go like, oh, keychains, here's some keychains. If I had to decide, because at first it was going to be coffee cups, but then I thought, wait, I have to send these things through the mail. And some people were in foreign countries. I had a contest once for a book, and somebody like in Iraq won the book, and it cost $80 to send it.
Oh,
And
wow.
I didn't get the book, and I'm like, oh heck! So I sent another one. It's like $160.
My God.
Yeah. So
Wow.
when you make a contest, think about these things. But
Got to think
so
about
it
these
was
things.
flat, and it was little, and it didn't weigh that much.
Right.
So it was really fun. That was good
Awesome.
time.
So, are there any upcoming projects you can tell us about?
Oh well, let's see. I'm very proud of this. It's very weird, and I don't know if it'll be backwards on your screen because I can't ever remember if I did that or not. But this is a weird book. It's called Sherlock Holmes of Baking Street, and it's not a cookbook. What it is, and you can see it's kind of horrific cover.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
This is an Australian comic book illustrator and a graphic novel artist named Jan Scherpenhuizen. And what it is was, I'm a Sherlock Holmes person, and my editor and she came up with the idea because everybody was baking during the pandemic. They were crazy baking. And so somebody said, well, isn't that funny that Sherlock Holmes doesn't live on Baking Street? And she said, well, that could be a springboard. So we took the idea of baking as a metaphor. So some people baked. I don't know if you know who Sweeney Todd was.
Mhm.
Yeah.
People baked, somebody wrote a mystery about baking people in pies. Somebody else, there's a line in Sherlock Holmes that said Baker Street was like an oven. And so they took that. Or there's a couple stories about mysterious fires or a kitchen fire or some kind of a poison or something hidden in a baked good. And then there's straight articles. There's articles about how did people in the Victorian times know how hot their ovens were? Who knew? Or, they cooked sugar. Sugar has a certain temperature. And when the sugar would cook, they go, okay, it's hot enough. Oh, I didn't know that. So it's all this kind of weird stuff. And I wrote an essay based on the movie Mr. Holmes, written by a man named Jeffrey Hatcher. And I met him and I interviewed him because when I watched that movie, for some reason, Sherlock Holmes became a real person to me. Mm-hmm. And, in fandom, some people have this weird kind of liminal sense, like Buffy is my best friend now. And some people I'm just watching a show and I like the show and I like Sarah Michelle Gellar and she's very pretty. But for some people, Buffy becomes very real. And so that's what happened with Sherlock Holmes. All of a sudden, he was a real person. And I thought, wow, how did that happen? And what it was a combination of things, but it had to do with having lived in Japan and eating Japanese baked goods. And so that was my baking street. So I know it sounds wacko, but it's not, we keep going, it's not a cookbook. So Sherlock Holmes on Baking Street. And I just received a Bram Stoker Award. And now it's probably fallen off of the pile. Where'd it go? Here it is. This is called Mary Shelley Presents. I don't know if you can see it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And this is the hardback graphic novel, but there's a paperback of it. And then there are individual comics. But what my editor and I did was we took stories written by women during the Victorian Edwardian time periods where the idea was that Mary Shelley, when she wrote Frankenstein, that has immortalized her. She's famous forever. People go, Frankenstein, Mary Shelley. Oh, but there's other women were just as popular, if not more so, than Mary Shelley or Charles Dickens or any, Bram Stoker, but their work has been forgotten. So we use the idea that Mary Shelley and the creature, being immortal, unearth these stories and dust them off and retell them. And so we retell them in comic book form. And then at the end of each story, I can get to it, we print the actual story.
That's
That's
freaking
awesome.
cool.
That's so cool.
That's
Thank you.
very cool.
My publisher is Chimera, Kymer Press, and that's the easiest way to get it. I think it's on Amazon now. But I did just win an award for it, and I'm very, very happy. We worked really hard on it. All the people who work on this, except for the layout or the company designer, are women. And the woman who started this company started it with funding because she had a disease called popcorn lung from eating too much microwave popcorn while she was a TV writer in Hollywood. She wrote on Touched by an Angel, Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, lots and lots of shows. And she wrote audiobooks for Dark Shadows for, what's that company? Big? Is it Big? What is it? You would know it. I'm sure.
I'm not sure.
Big thing. Anyway, so she had a lawsuit and she won, and she took the money from that lawsuit and she founded Chimera Press, and she hired a bunch of women to do 5 or 6 different comic book lines. And they gathered the first 4 of mine into this hardback graphic novel, also in a paperback. And we actually debuted at Comic-Con, and we usually have a booth at Comic-Con. So
Awesome.
those are my 2 things.
Those are
So
both
cool.
really cool.
That's
I'm
yeah.
definitely checking both of those out.
Me
Thank
too.
you.
Yes, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, wow. Well, Nancy, this has been an absolute pleasure talking to you
Well,
about the one and only Teen Wolf novel.
I know. Wait, here it is. Here's Scott. Here's Scott.
I was so
Wonderful.
excited whenever you said you would talk to us because, like I said, I've had your book since Buffy, so I just thought it was really, really amazing that we could
Well,
get a chance to sit down with you.
It's weird because as life goes on, I started writing those in the late 90s. And to me, it's like that was yesterday. And I was even stunned at how much time has gone by since On Fire. I'm like, dang, I'm getting really old. People, my mom used to watch Buffy, and I'm like, yeah, I know. We'll always have digital. That's what,
Yeah,
let's
very
go.
true. Very true.
So I'm very glad to meet you guys, and thank you. You're so smart and so fun, and we had a wonderful time, and I appreciate you asking me.
It's been really wonderful getting a chance to talk to you, and
Thank
Yes.
you.
just
Thank you so much for sitting down with us, and congratulations on your most recent award.
Yes,
Thank you.
such a cool project.
that's very
Yeah.
cool. Very
Thank
cool.
you very much. Well, let's just say we should all, focus your karma on more Teen Wolf. They could come back.
They definitely could. They
Good.
A
definitely
lot of people
could.
want it.
Werewolves can age, and more Teen Wolf books.
Yes,
Okay.
Definitely.
Yes.
absolutely.
By me.
Yes.
Yes, by you,
Yes.
the one and only. So yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Thank
Well,
you guys. Thanks so much. Thank
yes.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, and have a wonderful evening.
Have a great rest of your
Yeah.
night.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.